Go.
Hello, it's Dave Armstrong here, and you're watching Darren Phil Thompson's YouTube channel. Just make sure you check out all his previous interviews, likes of Lewis Stevenson, Darren McGregor, among a lot of others. And for some reason, I'm here today. So, good afternoon, Darren. How you doing?
Afternoon, Dave. I'm pretty well bored, but getting there.
I think we all are at this point. I think we're losing a little bit of sanity as the days go on, but oh well.
Oh well.
You do.
So obviously, we'll just be talking about your career as a commentator.
Mm-hmm.
So you first started on FIFA. How did that come about?
So basically, when I was younger, and I used to watch a lot of football, Football Italia on Channel 4 on the weekends, as a lot of people did in the 90s, FA Cup football on ITV and BBC and that. So there was, in the 90s, there was an awful lot of football to watch. There was an awful lot of football to see. So when I was watching the football, it was always like, I thought to myself, if you didn't have these commentators, you'd never have an atmosphere watching these games. So I just became fascinated with the likes of kind of John Motson and Clive Tilsley and all the big names back in the 90s, Ian Darke and stuff like that. So I just became fascinated with those commentators, and it just made me think, like, this is what makes the atmosphere of a football match at home. When you're watching on your TV, the caliber of commentary is so important to the game. You can have the worst game in the world, but if you have a decent commentator calling that game, then it's going to make a massive difference. So when you had games like FIFA 2000 and 2001 and games that you could turn the commentary off on, I used to just turn the commentary off, and I used to just rattle it myself, and I used to copy the likes of Martin Tyler and Clive Tilsley mostly. Just kind of used to copy them calling the games on FIFA that I'd be playing. That'd be a lot of fun, and that's where the love of commentary started for me as a young lad, like just playing my PlayStation 2 or PlayStation 1, just raffing off the commentary.
Now, obviously, you're now doing what I'm presuming is your dream job, working for Hibs TV.
Yep.
So what was your first game or first memory leading up to the first game that you were going to commentate?
So how it all started was I did an audio commentary page on Facebook, and I had a couple of people following. And I used to just do audio commentary on Premier League games. So I'd sit in front of my TV. I had a microphone, I had my phone. So it was like a little mini recording studio. I could just do my own commentary on the games literally from my own living room. I thought this is a great platform to just practice. And if people want to listen in, great, fantastic. So I used to do a lot of the championship games. I used to do a lot of Premier League games on Facebook, just literally through Facebook Live with a microphone and a black screen, because you can't broadcast on social media. And I was getting good feedback, and I was improving as time went on, and people were giving me decent feedback, and I thought, well, I must be doing something right here. And when I joined some of the Hibs fan pages on Facebook, I decided maybe I should do commentary on a few of the Hibs games that were being televised. That's what I've done. When BT Sport were showing the Hibs games, I'd do the commentary on some of the Hibs pages, and same with the derbies on Sky and that. I used to literally just do the commentary on the pages, and I got a lot of decent feedback. So I decided one day that I was commentating I was just doing my audio commentary on a Liverpool, I think it was Liverpool Crystal Palace. I think it must have been 2018 season, back end of 2018 season, and was it the back end? No, it was the back end of the 2018-19 season, and I took a 3-minute clip from one of the commentaries that I done, because I always recorded it and listened back, because when you listen back, you find out maybe little bits that you did wrong or you need to improve on. So I was always kind of making myself better, and I took that 3-minute clip and the one person that I probably owe this all to is Tracy Smith, who used to be who was the fans rep for Hibs at the time. Tracy done an interview with myself on my old podcast, and she was brilliant. She's absolutely fantastic, and I still have that podcast. It's still up as far as I can remember. But I asked her who's the best person to contact in regards to kind of media and Hibs TV and that, and she put me in contact with Kenny Miller, who not the Kenny Miller of Rangers, but
No, no, no.
the media and the media and comms manager at Hibs, and I sent him a 3-minute clip in an email, and he said he liked what he heard. He was very complimentary towards my commentary, and he passed it on to the other lads on the team, and they seemed to, well, they must have liked what they heard, and I was invited in to shadow Cliff Pike and Keith Reid, who are the two lead commentators for Hibs TV. And I went in to shadow them, and it was just very, very strange, because I'm going from sitting in the East Stand, screaming abuse at referees as everybody does, and screaming at the top of my lungs, cheering Hibs on, to walking up the stairs up into the gantry, to see what these guys do for Hibs TV, and it's a totally different environment, totally different way of looking at it. When you're going to a game with your mates and you're having a few pints before the game, and there's a lot of atmosphere. On this side of it, it's fantastic, but it's a completely different way of seeing the game. You have almost like a schedule. You have a time you go in. You have things to do before the game. You have things to do after the game. You've got you're commentating during the game. You've so many different things that you have to do, and that just adds to the enjoyment of it. But I remember going in first time I was shadowing, and I walked into it was another one of these situations where if I didn't do what I'd done, I wouldn't be here. So if I hadn't sent that 3-minute clip to Kenny, I wouldn't be where I am now. And I walked into the media room, and the Hibs TV guys normally sit at the kind of the head table in the media room. I sat down at a table. I didn't know any of them at the time, and I would assume they'd only been told that I was coming in to shadow them. So I kind of sat down at one of the tables a bit the way away, and I kind of said to myself, look, I better go up and introduce myself, because it was another one of these moments where I said, if I don't do this, I don't make a first impression, and they kind of find out who I am in passing. It's not really a good first impression to give. So I got up and I went over and I said, look, I'm here to shadow, the Hibs TV guys. I introduced myself and got to know Cliff and Keith, who are the commentators, Daniel Waterson, who does the social media, and Alan Rennie, who everyone knows, and Cameron Allen, Cammy as well. They're the two photographers for Hibs. So I got to know the whole kind of broad team in that room. They were the guys that were there. The first guys I met when I went into shadow Cliff and Keith, and listening to what they do and how they commentate on the game. So I did that a couple more times. Got to know the team a bit better, kind of, just got a feel for how they work and what they do. And I remember this vividly. The first time, that all kind of led to the first match that I'd done. And I was on the bus home from work one day. It was a Tuesday. I remember, because it was a midweek game against St Johnstone. The one we'd won 2-1. Mark McNulty scored the second. It was on a Wednesday night. So the Tuesday, I got a text. I was on the bus home from work. And I kind of looked at it and went, oh, and my wife kind of looked at me and said, what's that? Have you got said, I got a message. From who? And it was a message from Kenny, and he said, listen, I know it's a bit short notice, but can you do lead commentary on the game at St Johnstone, McDermott Park? I kind of looked at him and I said, is he actually asking me this? Like, is this actually legit, or is he is he just having a laugh? So I looked at it and I said to my wife Laura, I said, if I don't accept this, I'll probably never get another opportunity to go out, literally worldwide audience, go out to a worldwide audience of Hibs fans, and do the one thing that I've wanted to do for my whole life. This was the opportunity I had that I was presented with. And I text back straight away. I said, yeah, no problem. I'll be there, because I would have been going anyway. A friend of mine, Graham Nielsen, he gave me a lift out to McDermott Park. And I remember in the car going down, he just got a brand new Golf GTI. And I remember getting in the car and I was like, I'm absolutely shitting it. I am terrified. I mean, how am I going to present it? What am I going to, you almost can't talk. It's like you're overthinking everything, going, what am I going to say? What am I going to do? What am I going to sound like to these people? Am I going to crash and burn? Am I going to do well? But for the whole car ride down, I was just absolutely terrified. It was the first time I was ever going to be heard by, hundreds of, potentially thousands of people, across how many countries, because Hibs TV obviously goes out, globally. And then after the game, obviously the highlights go out, so your voice is still there for thousands upon thousands on social media and on the website. So that was all going through my head. And I got to McDermott Park, and Keith was doing the co-coms. I did ask him beforehand. I said, look, I don't want to step on anyone's toes here, but do you want to do the league comms for this game? And he said to me, no, you far away. I much prefer doing the co-coms. I'm used to it, doing the colour commentary and the co-commentating. I said, that okay, that's fine, because you want to I have a lot of respect for the team and Cliff and Keith. I didn't want to, disrespect them by coming in and trying to be a big man and saying, oh, I'm the lead commentator. It's not how I handle myself at all. And yeah, the first half was, you could probably tell I was nervous. If you listen back on the commentary for that game, I was very nervous. But after the first half, the 15-minute break, half time, and when we went back on, I grew into it in the second half much, much better. I felt a lot better in the second half. I felt I'd kind of gotten over that nervousness and that kind of, terrified feeling that I had. I kind of got over it, and I kind of grew into it. And after the game finished, and the post-match interviews were being done by Keith. So we went down pitch side, and that was another thing that I found extremely surreal. Was, we've just finished up. We packed up the ISDN box, and we packed up all the headphones, the equipment for the commentary. We walked down. I'm standing pitch side, and I'm standing just next to the tunnel at McDermott Park, and sitting in the dugout is Leon Dempster. So you got the CEO sitting in the dugout, and then by the tunnel you've got the chief of security and the welfare officers and stuff. It's just the people that you read about. You never think you're going to be standing next to them, but Leon Dempster's sitting in the dugout. She's on her phone, and then I honestly can't remember who we got for the post match that day. I remember Keith doing the interview. I can't remember for the life of me who was on the post match that day, but I just remember I'm standing here next to first team players, and it's just completely mind boggling, surreal that you've gone from a fan in the stand and 1 week, and then next week you're down here helping out with post match interviews, standing on the touchline at St. Johnston's ground. And the weirdest feeling of all was when we were leaving. My mate Graham was waiting for me out in the car park, and we were leaving. I thought, I'll just go up the stand and head out the normal way I came in. And I asked Kenny if I seen Kenny in the tunnel. I said, how did I do? Because you always want to get feedback. You always want to know how you done. He says, oh, you smashed it, and well done. And he was complimenting me quite well. And I thought there was nothing better than that. That was probably the best feeling I've had so far doing this. Was that that was probably the best feeling I've had, was just knowing that I came in for the first time and I did well. That's nothing beats that. It gives you that little bit of confidence. You need to do it again and again and again. And so we walked out through the tunnel, which was crazy. You're walking through a Scottish Premiership team's tunnel. I've never seen, other than stadium tours, you never see the inside of these things. Even on stadium tours, everything's empty, it's quiet. But see it on a match day and all the players going in and out and the coaches and all the kind of everything's going on, and it's kind of, the match day's going on, and I'm walking up the stairs before you hit the exit, the media exit, and I'm looking at the steps, and I look up, and only then did I realize, as I'm walking up the stairs, I've got David Gray behind me and Darren McGregor in front of me going out the same exit. And I'm just sitting there going, well, I'm not sitting, but I'm walking up the stairs going, I'm standing in between two Hibs legends here, walking up, just kind of as you do, strolling out of the exit, just come off commentating on, Hibs St Johnston. And I still remember every second of that day, and I don't think I'll ever forget it. But I remember every single step of that day. If I close my eyes, I can just run through it again and again and again. I haven't forgotten a single thing about that evening. First time doing it, you just don't forget it at all.
I mean, so obviously, your first derby that you ever commentated on, what was that like?
It was interesting. The derbies were always interesting. Unfortunately, I think the first one I done is when we lost 1-0, and that was I can't remember who scored the Hearts goal. I think it might have been Ollie, but
Yeah, it was Ollie
Lee, who scored that goal, and that was the first time I was calling it, and that was it's horrible. The things that you have to change when you go into a role like that is composing yourself is everything. You have to really take on a professional attitude, and you have to, when you walk into that building as part of the media team, it doesn't matter whether you're a volunteer or you're a full-time employee, it doesn't matter. You have to walk in there as if you're one of these players that are on the pitch, because at the end of the day, you're part of the bigger picture, you're part of the wider team that makes it all run. So you've got to have the same attitude as everyone else. You've got to go in, be professional. You've got to have respect for what you're doing, and it's not easy kind of changing your attitude, from being in the stand, and when stuff like that happens, you're going mental. And what it's like being a fan in a stand at Easter Road when we're losing to Hearts. It's horrible. You're going mental, willing the team on to do anything to just get a goal back, or to get 2 goals to win. But when you're in that position, it's
hard.
I found it much more passionate. I found myself a lot more invested in what was going on the park. I found myself a lot more invested in, how I was conducting myself on air, and how I was, portraying these guys. Because regardless of what the scoreline is, if we're playing Hearts and they score an absolute screamer, regardless of whether it's Hearts or not, credit where credit's due. If a great goal is scored, you're going to say it. It's a great goal. You can't be too biased. Obviously, you're a little bit biased because you're a club channel, but we try and be as unbiased as we possibly can, especially when we have sometimes if Aberdeen or St Johnstone are playing at Easter Road, because everyone's under the same umbrella, media-wise, with the broadcast going in and out. Sometimes the Aberdeen fans will have Hibs TV commentary on their feed, and sometimes St Johnstone fans, so Saints TV will have ours, or Killy TV will have our commentary. So when you have fans of other clubs listening in, you have to remember, these guys are watching their team as well. So you've really got to try and be as unbiased as possible, because you don't only have Hibs fans listening, you've got St Johnstone fans or Aberdeen fans listening as well. And you want to try and give them a good experience as much as you're trying to give your own fans a good experience. So that's a bit of a challenge at times, because when Hibs score against Aberdeen and you're going mental, then if Aberdeen score against Hibs, you can't just say, "Oh, goal Aberdeen." You've got to give them a little bit more atmosphere than that. So, it took a lot of learning. And after a game, I'd come home and I'd, when the the footage is released or the highlights are released, and I'd listen back on myself, and I'd watch games again, and I'd listen to what I was saying, and I'd constantly tweak it, and because you have to do that, you have to listen back and pick out little bits that you didn't like and bits you thought could have done a little bit better there, and change what you're doing, because you're constantly on a quest to improve yourself, regardless of how good you think you are. If you get to that point where you think you're good enough and you can't learn anymore, then you've lost it. You might as well just set the microphone down and walk away, because there's always ways to improve. Commentary is like anything else; it evolves over time. New practices come in, new ways of doing things come in, new techniques come in. And you have to kind of adapt as you go. So for me, it's going to constantly be an endless pursuit of perfection, and I think that's something that everyone has, even as a footballer. I've spoken to so many footballers who say no matter how good they are, they'll always try and improve themselves, because that's what makes them good at what they do is a constant pursuit of perfection that just never comes, because you're always trying to better yourself.
I mean, it's always like what I do, like it's always learning. There's always new ways for me to improve. I mean,
of course, there'll always be new techniques or new ways of conducting interviews that you'll learn. No doubt in my mind about that. You'll always have, and it's not just learning from a book or from a video. You could be watching someone interviewing on TV and say, "Oh, I like what he done there," and that's how you learn. You take what others are doing, and you kind of do that, but in your own way. You don't just carbon copy it, but you think, "I like what he did there. How can I, you know, how can I do that in my own way? How can I make that, my own?" How many interviews have you watched over the years and you thought, why didn't I pay more attention to that? Because now I'm doing it. What people who have interviewed, not just in sport, but if especially political interviews, if you watch a political interview, as boring as the subject may be, that's a very, very, you have to be on the ball when you're talking about politics and government and, on television, on national television. You look at interviews like that and you'll pick up some serious kind of techniques of how people conduct themselves on a nationally televised interview. And if that interview goes wrong, then you get to around and say, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to copy this for the, and it's not just in football, but if you look at interviews of other sports personalities and you look at how other reporters have done it, you'll get an idea of, you'll find out how you can do things better. You can do things yourself, and you'll learn tons of different things. And you're only starting out. You're not long going, and you've already amassed a following of over 500. On YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, social media. So you're already flying. You just need to keep doing what you're doing, and just keep learning, because you'll always be learning. It doesn't matter till the day you die. You'll be learning.
But it's the same as in any job. You're still learning.
Mm-hmm. I've still got my day job. I still, well, pre-COVID-19, I was still going into work, Monday to Friday, and doing what I was doing with Hibs on the weekends. And a lot, sometimes when you do these things, you're working 5 days a week, and you have something to do on the weekends. I did get a few people asking me, like, you work Monday to Friday, and then you're working on a Saturday or a Sunday for, say, 5 or 6 hours. Does that not take your weekend away? And my only answer to that was, not when you're doing something you absolutely love. It's never a job if you love what you're doing.
No.
It's never a job if you love what you're doing. Doesn't matter if you're an engineer, for example, and you're working on a project and you're loving what you're doing, it's not a job. You're loving what you're doing, fantastic. Because if you're going in there happy and loving what you're doing, you're living your life. You're loving what you're doing with your life. I wouldn't call it a job. That's a career. That's your career when you're doing what you love.
I mean, you've commentated on so many big games. I mean,
Yeah,
what's the most
I mean,
important one you've commentated on?
the most important one was the first. Well, I mean, it has to be the first time when we went to Hampden. Um, First time I commentated on a game at Hampden, because you're talking about a national stadium, a cup semi-final. You know, you're talking about 40,000 people. It, to date, the biggest game I've ever commentated on was Hibs and Celtic at Hampden in the Betfred Cup semi-final. Just the day that's in it, it's you know the first time I've ever wore a suit to a football game. Put it that way. You're suited. You've got your, I was given a club tie to wear, and that was a really proud moment for me, because when you're wearing an official club tie as part of your suit, it's a really special feeling. It's a privilege to wear it, because it just tells you, I've been chosen to wear this tie as part of, you know as part of this club. You're representing your club when you wear that tie and when you wear that suit, um, to these games. And not only that, when you're at any game, you're representing the club. But just to be at a cup semi final at Hampden, representing your club, is there's no better feeling than that. Um, you walk in, and you walk in the front doors of Hampden. You're not walking in the side into a turnstile or anything like that. You're walking straight to the front door of Hampden, and when you go into the media lounge, it's crazy. You know you've got your lunch, and your lunch set out for you. Full roast dinner for your lunch, and you've got it's a massive media room, massive tables, and you got your food ready for you. Your programs are there when you're going out the door, and I sent you. I got you a spare program that I sent out to you. And,
Which was much appreciated. So
oh, it's no problem.
is the lead up any different to any other match
Oh
days?
yeah, oh yeah. I mean, Hampden's a whole other ball game. I mean, you've got, pre-match, you've got your food and that, and then when you go out into the gantry, again, it's a cup semi-final, so you've got about 100 feet. Don't know whether that's accurate, but 100 feet of journalists, commentators, just general media. You've got BT Sport there, you've got BBC there, you've got Sky Sports. It's just incredible. You've got monitors at every station, so you know at a lot of the grounds in Scottish football, when you're at an away day, you only get to call the game from what you see in front of you. You don't have a monitor at every ground, because it's just the way it is. But at Hampden, you've got your monitor. There's three of you, commentating. You've got 40,000 people around you. The noise is incredible. The atmosphere is just unbelievable. And regardless of the result that day, it was a tough result for us to take against a phenomenal Celtic side. I mean, I just remember um, Tariq Elyounoussi just ripping us apart. He absolutely tore us to bits that day, and he was absolutely phenomenal. And he's from Southampton. He's a Premier League footballer, playing for Celtic, and there's no doubt he showed his talent that day and why he played at Southampton. But that's a whole different beast. Going to Hampden for a cup semi-final, and it's a real shame, because we got to the Scottish Cup semi-final and it was against Hearts, and before all this started, I was pinching myself. So I get to go to an Edinburgh derby at Hampden. You know, I get to potentially call an Edinburgh derby at Hampden, and hopefully get revenge for 2012. Potentially. But I was I was just thinking, when we got to that semi-final, I had to pinch myself, because I thought, I'm going to Hampden. I'm going to be calling an Edinburgh derby at Hampden.
That would be hard for
I
you.
I just couldn't believe that, this was potentially the opportunity I had in front of me. And when the lockdown happened and all this kind of kicked off, it was, I know it may sound a bit selfish to say, but I was heartbroken, because you never know when football's going to start back up. whether the Scottish Cup is going to resume, whether the league's going to resume. But it was especially heartbreaking because it's an Edinburgh derby at Hampden. It doesn't happen very often.
Often.
You know, it's one of these moments where, you know, you're there, you're on that microphone, you're calling potentially this eclipses Celtic, you know, in the League Cup. This is the Scottish Cup. This is a chance to get to a final and to beat your rivals at the same time. It doesn't get any bigger than that. It doesn't get any better than that for me.
I mean, it would be incredible if you were commentating the 2016 one.
Do you know what? I couldn't have done a better job than Cliff and the guys did that day. There's just no way.
No, they done
Because
well. Like,
the thing that I love about the job that they did that day was it was just pure raw emotion. At the end of that game, when David Gray scored, you could almost hear the tears running down their face. That's how emotional that was that day. And I couldn't have done that. I couldn't have. They done that. Nobody's replicating that. There's just no way.
no, but you're basically in your dream career.
Yeah, I'm only starting out. I mean, I'm just over a year into it now, and I'm just amazed that I've been lucky to call as many games as I have for, you know, for my club. You know, absolutely, this club is part of me. You know, as it is for so many fans. You know, I wouldn't have went out and got a Hibs tattoo if I wasn't absolutely sure of it. So, you know, I mean, it's this club is as big as that most hardcore fan in the world to me. It's the same. You know, the club is almost like family to me, to be honest. That Saturday or Sunday every week is as special the 500th time as it is the first time, because, you know, I do not take it for granted at all. You know, the chance to be there, it's an absolute privilege. You know, and if I got the opportunity to one day do that as a living, then, you know, that'd be me. You know, I'm set for life. That'd be fantastic. You know, it's not. Unfortunately, I have to do it the old school way. I can't really afford to take time off to do full time education. You know, it's a shame. You know, it's a shame that's come when I'm in my 30s, but, you know, you just got to crack on with it. So I've got to build my experience up. I get to do that, you know, in the club that I love. So you don't get a better start point than the one I've got at the minute, you know. And I'm very grateful to the people that helped me along the way. As I said, Tracy Smith, Kenny Miller, Cliff Pike has probably been the biggest influence on me since I started this. He was very, very kind enough to let me take the lead commentary position on the Betfred Cup group games that we had at the start of this season. He went to Kenny and said, look, he's going to let me do league comms, you know, to gain experience on doing league commentary in the Betfred Cup group games. And I was fortunate enough to do the whole Betfred Cup campaign. And he didn't need to do that. You know, he didn't have to do that. He did that off his own back, and that's one thing that I'll be forever grateful for. You know, he put me in that position, and, you know, I hope I've done him proud. You know, he's probably been the biggest influence. He's been a really good friend to me, and I owe him an awful lot for where I am at the minute. Him, Keith, even the photographers, Alan and Cammy, John, Peter, James, David, you know, they've all in some way, you know, helped me get where I am. So, you know, it is like a family in there, you know what I mean? And I'm grateful to every single one of them for helping me get where I am right now.
It is like one big, massive family. What are you?
It really is.
What's your thoughts on the new kit?
It makes me very, very proud to be a Hibs fan at the minute. You know, there's nurses and doctors out there that are dying from this disease just from treating patients. There's scientists in labs conducting tests to try and find a vaccine, to try and find something to get us out of this. I know I've got friends who are porters in hospitals in Dublin. I've got friends who are porters in hospitals in Edinburgh, and all the way down to the person answering the phone in a call center. They're all part of that chain. They're all part of that, the NHS. And what it says on the front of that shirt is exactly what I would say a million times over to every single one of them. This has shown that our healthcare workers are probably the most important thing to get us through this.
I mean, for Hibs to literally get that on the shirt, that just proves that we're, I wouldn't say more better than the other clubs, because that wouldn't, but at least we've done so that other clubs haven't.
I think to give away your sponsorship on the front of your shirt, as Leanne put it earlier on, is the most lucrative sponsor that a club has. It's the face of your sponsorship team. Like that. That's the one that everybody wants, the front of the shirt sponsor. And to give that as a thank you to the NHS is an absolute monumental thing to do. It's so good to do. I mean, I can't even put it into words at the minute, but it's amazing to see the club do that, and I'm so glad that they have.
And I hope other clubs follow on to this.
Mm-hmm. It'd be great. I mean, if you had a whole SPFL campaign or an SFA campaign to put that on the front of every club's shirt. But the thing is, you have to remember on the flip side of it, not every club can afford to give up the front of shirt sponsor. They have to be able to, they have to be able to survive. This has not been an easy time for clubs at all. I mean, they've had to lay staff off and they've had to, furlough a lot of their staff, and they've had to make a lot of tough decisions. There's clubs now in the League of Ireland that have had to lay off staff temporarily, and it's horrible. So the fact that Hibs can afford to do that is fantastic, and I'm glad that our club can afford to do that. But I know that there's clubs out there that can't afford to give away something that'll give them so much revenue that they need to survive on. So I wouldn't be surprised if maybe one or two other clubs did it, but I can understand why clubs wouldn't be able to. It's because they need that revenue to survive.
Well, I've seen something about Hearts that they're going to give 1,500 tickets for the NHS stuff.
Mm-hmm. And that's another great gesture. That's another great way of contributing to the NHS. If you can't afford to do the front of the shirt sponsor, Hearts have turned around and gone, you know what, we can't afford to do that, but we'll give 1,500 tickets away to key workers, care workers, people working care homes, people working hospitals, clinics, GPs, whatever, all the way down to the receptionist at your local dentist. Like these guys support football. Hearts probably have God knows how many key workers that are, pack their stadium out every weekend. So it's a great idea. It's a great incentive for them to take on and reward the people that are on the front line.
Yeah, but what I'll do, Dave, is I'll obviously end up, but I'll keep on talking to you.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Right. So thanks everyone for watching. Me interviewing Dave, and it should be up either tonight or tomorrow.